What about the oil or the gas in your tank when you sell your house? So many houses we sell either have a propane tank or a fuel oil tank outside of their home. Sometimes we'll find them inside the home in the actual basement. You'll find a tank, but most of the time they're outside. Sometimes they're above ground, sometimes they're buried. And a question that we get sometimes, and sometimes people don't know to ask this, is what about the gas I have in my tank? I just had it filled up. Should the buyer pay for that or not? Now, here in the Richmond, Virginia area, our regular association contracts make provision for that. They say that the buyer will pay the seller a prorated amount, or an amount equal rather to whatever the value of the gas or oil in the tank is at the day of closing, which means we'll have a company to go out and measure and give us a report setting forth how much oil or gas is in the tank and how much it is worth at today's rates. We will forward that statement to the closing attorney's office, who will then put it on the settlement statement, and the buyer will in fact pay for that oil or gas. That's the way the contract is written and the way things go here, unless otherwise specified. Certainly the buyer can have their agent put in the contract that oil or gas is to convey with the home at no charge to the buyer. Sometimes a seller in negotiations will offer that. They'll say, I just had the tank filled up and no charge for that. But a lot of times we see sales proceed to the closing without buyer or seller even thinking about this topic, and it's never been mentioned to them. Another thing that sometimes gets overlooked is that these tanks sometimes are owned by the oil or gas company. Typically we see this with propane gas in our area, where the gas company owns it. They've been leasing it to the owner of the house. And as the buyer comes in, they have an option. They can either continue to lease from that company. They could go and get their own company and lease or buy a tank from them. Or sometimes we'll find a situation where the seller is selling the house and they're actually committed to a lease for a certain amount of time, where, no matter what happens, they still owe that company money for a certain period of time where they've agreed to lease the tank. So, a few things to think about. Who knew that there could be so much to consider in the way of something seemingly so simple as an oil or gas tank? Wanted to bring it to your attention today so that it'll be on your radar if you start down that road. Have a great week.